Hi guys, I'm Dimitri from XYZ Create. Halloween is right around the corner, and one of my favorite things to do is carve pumpkins. The only problem is, these store-bought pumpkin carving knives are terrible. They bend, they break, and they're really dull, and they can make pumpkin carving really frustrating. So, I made a better one. I start this project off with a small block of walnut. Using my bandsaw, I split the block right down the middle. With the walnut sides cut, I can work on the inner layer, and for that, I'll be using a 16th inch maple skateboard veneer. The maple veneer will be going in between the walnut pieces and will allow me to make a cavity for the blade to sit in, as well as provide a nice decorative contrast. This maple skateboard veneer is very thin and would most likely chip at the bandsaw, so to prevent that, I'm using an MDF backer board. Using some double stick tape, I can temporarily stick these pieces together. And would you look at that, it's a wooden ice cream sandwich bar, but you shouldn't eat it because it's probably full of splinters. For this project, I made a template of the knife handle, and if you'd like one, I'll leave a link down in the description below where you can get your own. With the template attached, I take the piece over to my drill press and drill two 1/8 inch holes. These holes will be used for alignment pins in a later step. Using my bandsaw, I cut the piece to rough shape. The 3/4 inch resaw blade I have on my bandsaw doesn't handle tight curves like this all that well, so I stay a good distance away from the line. Using my combination disc and belt sander, I smooth out the rough cut left behind of the bandsaw and bring the shape down to the line. The spindle sander allows me to sand areas that my belt sander can't reach. I went a little heavy with the spray adhesive, so I'm using rubbing alcohol to remove the template. So, to transform this from just a handle into a completed knife, I'll be using this old jigsaw blade. After a couple dozen woodworking projects, it's no longer as sharp as it once was, but it should absolutely decimate a pumpkin. This jigsaw blade has definitely seen some better days, so I cleaned it up using the scouring pad. Look at that bad boy shine. It's as good as new. Using a 1/8 inch aluminum rod, I create the locating pins. I cut the pins oversized because longer pieces are easier to work with. I'll just have to cut them down to size later on. With the handle shaped, the holes drilled, and the pins cut to size, I can use a spatula to separate the pieces. With the pieces separated, I gave them a light sand with 220 grit sandpaper. The maple veneer will allow me to make a cavity for the blade in between the walnut sides. With the blade positioned where I want it, I trace the outline using a pencil. Using an X-Acto knife, I trace the outline several times. A coping saw would have worked really well here, but I don't have one of those, so I improvised. Don't worry if the cavity's not perfect. The blade just needs to be able to fit inside. The X-Acto knife was a little slow, but after a few passes, you'll start to see a ghosting of the outline appear on the underside. Then all you have to do is trace the ghost outline to complete the cut. Once I've cut it all the way through, I can pop out the piece and test fit the blade. To attach everything together, I'll be using Total Boat 4-minute epoxy. I applied a thick coat of epoxy to one of the walnut sides. I probably used way more epoxy than was necessary, but I would rather have too much than not enough. After applying some epoxy to the alignment pins, I inserted them into the holes. The alignment pins made it so easy to keep everything lined up. All I had to do was slather each piece with epoxy and slide it down into place. Using a hacksaw, I cut the oversized aluminum locating pins to size. The hacksaw goes through the aluminum like it's not even there, making quick work of this. I may have been a little heavy-handed with the epoxy, so there was quite a bit of squeeze out all along the edges. To fix this, I scraped it away with a razor blade. After a few minutes with the razor blade and some sandpaper, the epoxy squeeze out is all gone. Now I need to fix the corners, which are at a sharp 90-degree angle and makes the knife uncomfortable to hold and use. To fix them, I round the corners over using 220 grit sandpaper. Ooh, silky and smooth. That's so much better. To finish the piece, I'm using cutting board wax. It's super easy to apply and really brings out the natural beauty of the wood. I slather it on pretty thick and let it sit for about 15 minutes. After letting the wood absorb the finish, I wipe away the excess and buff to a nice sheen. With the finish applied, this project is done.
So I hope you guys had as much fun watching this video as I did making it. And if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you guys would like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, check out some of my other videos. That'll do it for this one, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! A bunch of boogers.